So I'm out camping doing some field testing on fire warmth, and this level 2 fire definitely... Wait, what was that? That sounded big. Oh. Okay, maybe that was a little bit silly. But hey there, my name is Salandrak and welcome to part 2 of my Beginner's Guide series, Guide on Surviving Winter. In the last episode, we focused on game mechanics relating to temperature, freezing, insulation, and thermal stones to help you survive the ever-present danger of winter's biting cold. But in this episode, we'll focus more on gameplay challenges, including preparing for winter, surviving in the cold, hunting winter's walruses, and getting you ready for your friend and mine, the Deerclops. So let's get right to it. In terms of preparing for winter, there's really only 2 things you need to do before the season changes to help yourself to not struggle when the cold comes. The first is to make sure you have a well-prepared base before the end of fall. At the very least, you'll want to have at least 1 or more crock pots, 1 or 2 ice boxes, a bird cage, and at least 2 drying racks, though preferably 4 or even 8. You should also have some chests for storage. For more on base building, go watch the second guide in the series or the second video of my Wagstaff playthrough for an actual gameplay example. The second task you'll want to accomplish is to gather at least some decent winter clothing and probably a thermal stone before the first snows start to fall. I personally prefer to get a Beefalo hat, which requires 8 Beefalo wool and a Beefalo horn. The horn is generally the limiting factor though, as it only has a 33% chance to drop from a dead Beefalo. Depending on how many bovines there are in your world and whether or not you're lucky, it may not be possible to get one of these without eliminating whole herds of Beefalo. Or maybe like Wigfrid here, you'll get a horn with every kill. But if you're not able to get a Beefalo hat, the winter hat is also a perfectly decent option. It's only half as warm as a Beefalo hat, but compared to the Beefalo hat, which has no sanity benefits, the winter hat does boost your sanity by a meager 1.33 points per minute. It's not enough by itself to offset the sanity draining effects of the long winter dusk and nights, but it does help, and it's easy to craft and only requires 4 Beefalo wool and 4 spider silk. I generally never bother with any of the tier 1 clothing options though, as they just don't provide enough benefit to make them worthwhile. You can do just fine in the early winter with just a thermal stone until you can get tier 2 or tier 3 options in place. As for surviving in winter, once you've got temperature management under control, it's really not too bad. As I explained in the very first guide in this series, you'll want to make sure that you stay well stocked on your critical survival materials, especially grass, twigs, and logs. Since the grass and twigs don't regrow during the winter, you might need to do extended road trips to restock your supplies. Another good option is the tumbleweeds in the desert, where you'll also want to stock up on cactus for boosting your sanity and or making pierogi. If you're away from base and either don't want to use the resources to make a campfire or, heaven forbid, don't have the resources to make a campfire, you can also just light something on fire with a torch to warm up. Trees of all types and sizes burn for 15 seconds, so if you stand just close enough to not catch on fire, that's 15 degrees of warming. Berry bushes also burn for 15 seconds, but grassy tufts and saplings only burn for 10 seconds. All of these objects also burn hotter than your level 4 campfires and fire pits, so they theoretically could get you hotter than a placed fire if you burned a few in a row. Just keep in mind that burnt berry bushes, saplings, and grassy tufts don't grow back, whereas trees can always be replanted. As for winter food, this one is really easy. Just run along the coast to spawn pangolins during the winter, then mine the mini glaciers that form near their nesting grounds for ice. This ice can be used as filler in your crock pot, and 3 ice with a single morsel or monster meat can make meatballs. It's a good idea to get several stacks of ice during the winter, as it will never spoil when kept in your icebox and make staying well fed basically trivial year round. Just be careful not to hit any of the pangolins while you're mining, as they do protect their flock and will attack you if you hit one. And besides, they have a low chance of dropping anything useful and really aren't worth the effort of killing anyways. But speaking of chances to drop something useful, one mob you will definitely want to hunt in the winter is the MacTusk and Son Walrus hunting parties, as the big walrus MacTusk has a 25% chance to drop the Tam O'Shanter hat, a decently warm tier 2 hat that comes with an amazing sanity boost of 6.7 points per minute. The Tam O'Shanter basically makes sanity concerns obsolete, as its sanity boosting effect is enough to raise your sanity even during the nighttime, so long as you have a light source nearby. MacTusk also has a 50% chance to drop a Walrus tusk that can be crafted into the speed boosting walking cane, an extremely useful item for getting around the map quickly. In addition to these two amazing items, he always drops one blow dart and has a 25% chance to drop a meat. The walruses spawn during the winter at the igloos that form at the walrus campsites, and during the day will venture out in search of prey. So long as you don't get too close, they will only make rude gestures at you. But if you do get close, MacTusk will start shooting at you with his blow darts, which can really hurt if you aren't wearing armor, and the wee MacTusk will send his loyal blue hounds to attack you. So how do you take them down and make the hunters the hunted? I'll give you two different methods. Option 1 is to use a ranged weapon. If you have some reeds, blue feathers, and hound's teeth, you can make blow darts, 2 of which will take out MacTusk before he can hit you back, and after that you just have the 2 hounds to deal with, which are really easy to handle by themselves. Blow darts are a little bit expensive though, and if it's your first winter you might not have any hound's teeth yet. So another option is to use a sleep dart, which is much easier to make in the early game, needing only a black feather, a bee stinger, and 2 reeds. One sleep dart will make MacTusk take a nap, giving you enough time to take out the hounds before turning your attention to the big guy. Depending on how fast he wakes up, he might get one shot off at you, and then you'll have to chase him to either the edge of the map or until he's far enough from home that he starts to walk back to his camp. At that point, you can simply attack him with impunity. Option 2 is to let something else do your dirty work for you. MacTusk will attack basically any mob that gets in range, including pengulls, tallbirds, beefalos, spiders, pigs, or even Chester. So what you can do is lure the hunting party across the path of one of these other mobs, let the hunting party aggro on the mob, then run in to kill MacTusk and the hounds. You still might end up chasing him for a while, but eventually he'll start walking home and can be taken out with ease. As for the wee MacTusk, he's a coward and will run away once his hounds are dead. The hunting party respawns every 2.5 to 3 days, and if you approach one at night and the walruses are active, you'll see the 2 hounds keeping watch from outside the igloo. Get too close and the party will pop out to attack you, so approach with care if the lights are on and the hounds are outside. And last but certainly not least, I would be remiss without covering the greatest danger of winter, the terror that comes in the night, the Deerclops. Deerclops has about a 66% chance to spawn on normal settings, and if this is your first winter, it generally spawns in the last third of the season, typically around day 30. In future winters, the spawn time is more variable. You'll start to hear a warning sound well before Deerclops arrives, and once spawned, it will target a structure that is nearest your character. This force of nature will then seek out and destroy any such structures in a pretty large area, whether it's your base, a pig village, or anything else that isn't natural to the world. Deerclops will only attack you if you either attack it first or otherwise get too close. It uses an area of effect attack around it though, so even if you're behind it and it looks like it's hitting the other direction, you'll still get hit. The main attack does 75 damage without any armor on and has a chilling effect that will freeze you if you are hit when already chilled. And be careful the Deerclops doesn't wander into a herd of Beefalo, as the AoE and freeze will take out all but the largest herds in no time. There are several ways to take down the Deerclops without actually fighting it yourself, such as luring it through a forest so that it knocks down trees and eventually spawns Tree Guard, which, if enough respawn, will take it out. Swamps can also be used, but unless you've got a reed trap or other area with a high density of tentacles, it might take a while to down the Clops. But if you're new to the game, I recommend learning to fight it yourself. It can be really exciting your first time and is very satisfying when you manage to pull it off. And the best way to do that is to remember the very first survival principle from episode 1 in this guide series, and that is to be prepared. Specifically, to be prepared for Deerclops, there are 3 key areas to have locked in before you even hear the warning growls, and they are character stats, equipment, and game plan. Deerclops hits like a truck and has a massive insanity aura that will make your mental fortitude drop like a rock. So to maximize your chances of survival, you want to make sure your health and sanity stats are topped off before the giant spawns. Jerky works great for both health and sanity, so hopefully you have some stockpiled by now. If not, cactus grows during the winter and can be used for sanity, and by now you hopefully know the recipe for pierogi by heart for healing. Stay topped off as best you can throughout the winter, so you'll be ready for Deerclops when and if it arrives. For equipment, you'll definitely want to have a set of full durability armor ready to go, consisting of both a fresh football helmet and log suit or better, as well as a brand new handbat that ideally you'll craft as soon as you hear the warning sounds. If you've unlocked the bundling wrap recipe, it's a good idea to put these 3 gear items along with a stack of sanity food into the bundled supplies and keep it with you during the latter half of winter. It's also a good idea to have a prefabricated sign crafted and ready to be placed. I'll explain why in just a moment. And for game plan, you'll need to know well in advance the key steps you'll take as soon as you hear the warning growls to maximize your chances for survival and minimize the potential collateral damage to your base. As noted above, once spawned, Old Clopsy will target nearby structures. So unless you want part or all of your base to get ruined, it's a good idea to not be near your base during the time frame that Deerclops might arrive. Remember that pre-crafted sign I mentioned a moment ago? A good trick once the attack is incoming is to simply plant that pre-crafted sign at your location, stoke up a campfire, and then wait for the giant's arrival. That way the giant will come to you rather than you having to search the night for it. Note that it's important to use a campfire and not a fire pit, as the fire pit is a structure that can be destroyed by Deerclops' attacks. A campfire, on the other hand, does not get destroyed even if you're fighting right on top of it, which is a great way to stay warm during the fight as you'll be wearing armor and not winter clothing. If you are at base when the warning growls start, you can quickly grab what you need and run at least a few screens away, and again, drop your pre-crafted sign, make a campfire, and wait for the beast. If it doesn't come straight towards you, it's probably a good idea to run back in the direction of your base or any other known structures nearby to find it. You'll know you're close when you hear the stomping sounds. As for the actual fight, it's really pretty simple, especially if you're properly prepared with the equipment outlined earlier. The fight basically goes like this. Scream, "Ah, motherland!" and then run up to Deerclops and hold F until it's dead. That's it. You'll get frozen a couple of times, but by not kiting, you'll land far more hits in much less time than using a kiting strategy. Depending on your character and stats at the start of the battle, you'll probably end the fight insane and have lost maybe 60 health or so hopefully you have some jerky or cooked cactus flesh on hand to recover. Or take the time while you're crazy to fight shadow monsters for a while to stock up on nightmare fuel. Just be sure to save that eyeball, as it can be used to make the eyebrella an extremely useful item to have to keep you dry in spring and cool in summer. If you're playing a low damage character like Wendy or Wes, you'll need to make sure you have extra armor, as a single set won't do it. 1 log suit and 2 football helmets should do the trick. Just make sure to put the armor that you have 2 of on last, as it will break before the armor that you put on first due to a concept known as armor priority. But what do you do if you don't have full stats, don't have armor for your head and body, or don't have a fresh handbat or other high damage weapon? Well, you basically do the fight pretty much like every other fight using a kiting technique, because you won't be able to afford to take many hits. Much like fighting a tree guard, you can usually land 3 or 4 hits between Deerclops' attacks, but it might take some practice to get used to the attack range. The AoE is not as big as it looks from the animation, but when you're starting out, it might be a good idea to just do 2 attacks before running away, gradually increasing the number of hits as you get more comfortable with the timing. Speed boosters like a walking cane or RoG can help you to get in and out of range faster, but it can be tricky to toggle the items or identify the location of a road under the snow. The biggest downside to this method is that due to the kiting, the fight will overall take much longer, meaning you'll definitely go crazy and you might start to get cold. So be sure to restoke the fire if needed, and hopefully you have some sanity restoring food to top things up, as you'll probably need to use them during the fight. If you happen to get attacked by any shadow monsters while fighting, you'll probably need to back away from Deerclops and take out the shadows first, as you don't want to have to deal with both at the same time. And hopefully you have something better than a spear for the fight. A hambat works great, but even a tentacle spike will end the fight far quicker than just a spear. With some practice though, you'll be able to take down the Deerclops with confidence, and I hope you'll let me know down in the comments how you felt when you first bagged this big old baddie. And that's a wrap for this video. Winter is definitely a pretty big challenge when you're first learning the game, but if you can make it through winter, then spring will be a cinch. Summer, on the other hand, well, let's just say it will most likely be a hot mess your first couple of tries, but we'll cover that in a future video. In the next episode in this series, we'll be covering combat, including weapons and armor, how to fight a variety of non-boss monsters, and we'll review the best ways to patch yourself up after taking a beating. As always, if you found this video helpful, informative, or at the very least somewhat entertaining, please hit that like button and subscribe to be notified of future videos. And if this video helps you down your first Deerclops and or survive your first winter, I would really love to hear about it down in the comments. Now get out there and don't starve!